Welcome to the Geek podcast, where the winter won't let up, here anyway. I'm Void, and I'm here with my co-host, Beej.
It was like 70 today. I was sweating.
I'm jealous. Today we were talking about dumb movies, because we started talking about it last week, and then we realized we wanted to talk about it more. That's all the reasoning that I need for it. And
yay, dumb movies.
When we say dumb movies, dumb in air quotes that you can't see because this is a podcast, but it's those movies that we love, and it's like, I guess I always talk about them as like I turn my brain off for them, or
right.
The other way that you always try to reframe it when I put it like that is it is what it is, and it succeeds at being what it's trying to be, and it's not trying to be like highbrow cinema. It's definitely a very narrow focus on what it wants to be.
And I love the term dumb because in my house, Jennifer and I really do put it out there that dumb is awesome. That when we see something at an art show, we're like, oh no, look at this, honey, this is dumb. And the artist will look at us and it's like, no, we're going to buy this. We love it. Like this thing is ridiculous and we love it. And that is the highest compliment that you can get from us, because when we say something is dumb, it means that we want it in our lives. And so for these kind of movies, like, dumb is exactly the way I think about it. It's like, man, I want to see a dumb movie, and that's the way I felt pretty much all weekend long.
Well, and so this came out of like last week's conversation. So we were talking about Ready Player One, because I think you and I would probably both classify that as like, it knows what it wants to be, but like I'm not going to go into that and be like, my mind is super engaged. It's like, it's going to be a spectacle, but that's kind of all it's going to be. And maybe that's a better way to think about a lot of these movies. Like, they're over the top, or they're bombastic in a way. It's quicker to say dumb movies, but I don't think that's the exact right term, and I don't think we're going to land on the exact right term either, but that's okay. It's a good, that broad stroke to paint all of these with. But we were thinking about like Ready Player One, Pacific Rim 2, because you're super excited for both of those. You know, Jumanji.
I already saw Pacific Rim 2. I mean, I could not wait on that one. Like, that was a release day showing for me.
Right, and like Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle, because I saw that the other week, and I was like, it succeeds so well at being exactly what it sets out to be. And then Jurassic World, like Jurassic World 2 is coming out here pretty soon. I'm psyched for that one, and like my wife and I will go back and watch Jurassic World a lot, actually, like a surprising amount, because that movie's pretty dumb, but it's actually really fun. And maybe that's like a common through line, is that a lot of these are fun too.
Yeah, and I think that really is more of what it is, that these are fun movies that you can watch over and over again, and it doesn't stop being fun. That it's something that you don't have to necessarily, you don't have to spend a lot of analysis time on it. You don't have to try to figure out what's going on. Maybe the first time if there are some twists or something like that, but generally, like you said, it's just a fun movie. And I actually don't think Jurassic World and the Jurassic Park movies fall, the first one at least, like those don't fall into the dumb movies category for me. Those just kind of hit that action movie level where they're fun and they're great, but there's nothing ridiculous about them. And I know how that sounds because it's about cloning dinosaurs. No, but when I say that there's nothing ridiculous about it.
I disagree with Jurassic World. I think Jurassic Park is different, because when it was made and all the filmmaking that went into it and the time and place that it was created, I'll agree with you there. But Jurassic World itself is there. That movie is ridiculous. Like, there are so many things in that movie that, and have you seen it more than once? Because I've seen it, like, I don't really rewatch movies. I've probably seen Jurassic World like 15 or 20 times.
Good God. No, I have only seen it the one time.
Yeah, so the big bad dinosaur, like, they splice all this extra DNA into it that gives it superpowers, basically. And then one of the most like epic fights in it is they sick raptors on it that are acting as like remote controlled, I don't even know, it's like heat vision, like they have laser beams on their heads, and trust me, that movie is ridiculous.
That's fair. Okay, I'll see that, because I'll concede that, because I haven't really thought about it in that way, because it's always tied in with the first movie so much, and how much I love the Michael Crichton books and all of that. So absolutely can see that.
Yeah. So I mean, no, Jurassic World is very separate from Jurassic Park, even though I know they're the same universe. It's a continuation of the story. I would not group Jurassic Park or like any of those movies either, even though some of those are pretty bad. But
3 is a dumb movie that I will get behind, and whenever it's on TV, Absolutely.
Yeah, but I wouldn't
Watch
group those in with Jurassic World.
That's
whereas
true.
Jurassic World definitely fits in this category for me. I will defend that one. But like the main question I had in here is like, why are these appealing? And maybe you were getting at it already, talking about how like it doesn't take as much analysis. I mean, I guess I like to say I can turn my brain off, even though I don't turn my brain off all the way. It's like I just know that I won't have to do any mental heavy lifting. It's almost like lowest common denominator movies. Like these are the pop culture. These are like the filler, like big budget flicks sometimes that are just bombastic to be bombastic.
And that, for me, it's along the same lines because I don't get to turn my brain off because it's still that kind of film scholar thing in the back of my mind where that's what I've studied for so long that I think that's why I can appreciate these. That's why I can say like this is succeeding as a film because of the direction it's going, because of auteur theory and just all of this stuff with whenever I see one of these, I can appreciate it so much because it's kind of like you know the rules and then you can break them. It's because I've spent so much time looking at the cinematography and the scholarship behind it. It's like, yep, they're doing good things, and that's why this is fun. Kind of like you when you can't stand a slow-paced movie because you know it, and you're like, you're breaking this the wrong way. That's kind of the way I feel about like the Transformers movies because they're dumb in the bad way for me because they don't do it well.
Yeah, I mean, some of the first Transformers, like maybe the very first one was pretty funny and fun in this way, but I know exactly what you're getting at. And like
the first one I did really like the first one.
There's a line here where it's like sometimes it's just a bad movie and then other times it's like a dumb movie, but it's fun and it's good and it's, again, both of them can kind of go towards lowest common denominator, but these movies have like redeeming qualities about them that we love. So maybe we should get into our favorites a little bit to talk about them. So, I mean, I already talked about Jurassic World. I wanted to mention like Fifth Element in passing, which you said you just watched Valerian, and I would probably group that in here too.
Yeah, because, I loved Valerian. It is not a good movie.
No, it's not.
Like, it is not a good movie. And I remember you talking about it during the geekery, whenever it was that you watched it initially. And you said that it didn't have a good story, but it was pretty, and that you should watch it just because of how pretty it is. And I totally agree with that. The story is terrible, don't get me wrong, and the like romance element is completely forced, and the acting is bad. But it's that level of Fifth Element bad. Almost. Like, it doesn't quite reach there. And I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm maybe 15 minutes into the movie, and I'm sitting there, it's like, I see something, it's like they get to, like, the first desert planet or something, and I just sit and look at it, and I'm like, this is bad, but this feels almost like Fifth Element bad. Like, that's really the vibe that I got off of it. And so I IMDb'd it, and it's the same director. And I'd completely forgotten that it was done by the same director. And it was like, oh, well, that would be why it's Fifth Element bad. And I kind of leaned in at that point because I realized that it was doing what it was setting out to do, even though there were a lot more face plants in this one than there were in the Fifth Element.
Yeah, well, I think a bunch of sci-fi can fit in here. It just depends on the person. Like I already mentioned, like Pacific Rim for me. I see it's on your list too. But I mean, you have Battlefield Earth, which I've actually never seen, but that's sci-fi, right?
Oh, it's so bad. Yeah, it is. Okay. It is I don't even know how to put why I like that movie because it's not good and I don't like it and it's not terribly fun. But every single time it comes on TV and I see it just playing, I'll stop and I'll watch it. Half the time I'll do it if I see it on demand because I don't see it on any of the streaming services often. But if I go across and it has a little Prime thing, I'm like, yeah, I'll watch Battlefield Earth. I don't know what it is because it is a straight up bad movie. It doesn't even fit in with the rest of these, but it's like, all right, I'll watch this and I can't not watch it. I don't know what it is.
Well, here, let me tell you about a bad sci-fi movie that is absolutely glorious. You already know it. It's called Starship Troopers.
Oh, it's so good.
I love that movie. It is horrible, and I love it. It's so good. I don't rewatch movies much, but that is one that I don't even know how many times I've seen it.
Oh, I know. I'm the same way. I had it on DVD that basically stayed by my TV when I was in college, that I would just watch it over and over again.
and all of the stuff with like, would you like to know more? Like, I love the trappings of that movie and everything that they did around it.
Have you read the book?
I have. I actually really like the book. Usually if I read the book, well, there's three things that are tied together in my mind. So if I ever do one, I will always go out of my way to do the other two. So the Starship Troopers movie, the Starship Troopers book, and then Old Man's War, the book. Those three are like just linked in my head. So whenever I read one of those books or watch the movie, the next thing that I do is do the other two. It's like without fail every time.
And they're so good. And that was one of the reasons I think Starship Troopers is like important, because it's been done in both ways, because the book is incredibly serious and almost propaganda level serious sci-fi.
The book
and
is
then you
good.
get Starship Troopers. It's this farce of everything that the book was, but it's still a fantastic adaptation of the book. And then you have Old Man's War that John Scalzi wrote as a counterpoint to the book, but has an almost tonal adaptation of the movie going in. Like it's absurd how well Scalzi linked into those two different properties.
Yeah, no, totally. So, I mean, there's that whole wing of sci-fi that you and I have both latched on to. Ready Player One probably fits in here somewhere, too.
I'm assuming it's going to.
Yeah, along with, like, this Pacific Rim movies. And then there's this other wing
robots.
Yeah, I know. And, like, maybe the first Transformers movie could be in there. The first one, none of the other ones.
Nope.
And then I see you have Snatch and 21 Jump Street, and I have Hot Fuzz and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And now that I'm looking at our lists, those are all kind of in a similar vein, aren't they?
Yeah. They kind of are. It's like Snatch is a Guy Ritchie movie. Have you ever seen it?
No. I think I tried once and I didn't know what I was getting in for. I just wasn't prepared or in the right state of mind for it.
Right. And you have to be. It's something where you have to be in the right mindset, because you can't understand anything that people are saying. So the first time you watch it, especially, put on the subtitles. It will make it a lot better. And the movie is just ridiculous. It's kind of a pseudo sequel to Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. And it's what made me a huge Brad Pitt fan. The moment I saw him in that movie, I fell in so much love with him that it's just like I would leave my wife if Brad Pitt walked in right now. It's like, hey, you want to get married? I'm like, yeah, why not? It's like, I love him because of Snatch. That is the best role he has ever had. And so because of him in that movie, I love it. Mickey the Pikey is so funny.
Well, Mr. and Mrs. Smith is also a Brad Pitt movie, and it's Angelina Jolie. And I think it's probably my favorite performance from both of them. Like, I love that movie. It is ridiculous. And I think that most people, if they've even seen it or even heard of it, it's like, it's a spy partner movie, but basically there's a husband and wife team. They're married, and being married is their cover, and they don't know that each other are spies. And they end up going up against each other, and they get assignments to take each other out. So they're kind of spies, kind of like hitmen, basically. So they get a contract to kill each other. And that's where the movie starts, essentially. And then they find out that the other person is also a hitman. And it's ridiculous. It's over the top. It was
so good.
It is so good. It was kind of billed as like a spy movie, but it's not. It's a comedy. And
absolutely.
It's one of those that I think like the marketing on it was just totally destroyed any chance it ever had of getting picked up by like mainstream people. Because what that movie looked like before it came out and what that movie actually is are two completely different things.
And I said, we were talking about this before we started recording, but it was the best movie that came out that year. I can't remember what year it was, but it was 2004-ish, 2005-ish. And when I saw it, I've watched it so many times, and I saw it in the theater probably 3 times. It was just, it wasn't brilliant, but it was just perfect for that time period. Like when it was in theaters, it was what I wanted to see. And it was fantastic. And it's one that I don't even consider on my top list, but every time somebody mentions it, I'm like, oh my God, it was so good.
Well, I think a lot of these too, they grow on you. Like the first time you see it, it might be okay. Like the level of like love and like hype we're pouring out here, it only comes after you've seen these movies a bunch. Like 2-3 times at least, but really after you've passed like 5 times, 10 times, 20 times seen these movies, there's like, even if it doesn't have a cult following, it ends up having almost like a personal cult following for you. And that's the kind of movie that we're talking about. So like Hot Fuzz is another one for me. I think at this point, everybody has seen Hot Fuzz at least once. But
My wife hasn't.
That's weird to me. It's part of that like Shaun of the Dead trilogy, the Cornetto trilogy, whatever it ended up being called. I can never
remember, yeah.
It's very loosely tied together with Shaun of the Dead and The World's End, but Hot Fuzz is the standout one easily. And it's, you know, just a buddy cop movie that's just over the top and ridiculous, but also amazing. Like, it's an Edgar Wright movie. And I really like Edgar Wright movies, which
it is
probably also ties into Scott Pilgrim, which I would put on this list. And
yes,
I think I'm putting it on this list because most people would probably put it here. I actually think that Scott Pilgrim, that movie, does so much more than it's ever given credit for. It might be my favorite movie of all time. Like,
oh my gosh.
I don't have a lot. I keep coming back to the fact that I don't have a lot of movies that I rewatch, and I'm kind of putting most of them out there right now. I mean, outside of Star Wars, which I wouldn't put on this list, but that's one that I rewatched like a lot. You know, and like the Marvel movies, I kind of rewatch those. Everything else is kind of here. It's this kind of stuff that we're talking about. And Scott Pilgrim is probably my favorite movie. I love everything that the director does, the director-writer, like, does with that movie.
And I was really upset when it came out because it looked so dumb. Like in a bad way. I was so annoyed by everything about it. I completely did not watch it. That it took me, it may have been 10 years after it was released before I actually saw it. Close to 10 years at least. And when I finally saw it, I was just blown away by how good it was. That I'd heard people say it was good, but I just assumed that they had bad taste. And then when I saw it, it was just brilliant. Like, it really was. That the way that he put it together, it's so unique in the way that the story is told, and I love it. I've seen it a lot. Probably not as much as you have, but it's one that I really wish I hadn't waited so long on.
Well, it's one that on a surface level, it looks like kind of a dumb, bad made like video game movie that's not really a video game movie. And that's why I saw it. Because people are like, oh, you like games? You should see this. And I was like, no, there's something more to that movie. And then you keep going back and watching it, and it's like, oh, there are so many levels to the story and the visual storytelling and the script and the writing. And it's, I can't believe like how deep that movie is for what it seems like it actually is on the surface.
Right. For what it is way more than what it is.
Yeah. Well, and I love
that
how
makes sense.
It totally does. I love how on your list you have basically any Vin Diesel movie.
Yeah, pretty much. I love me some Vin Diesel, and I get like so much of a hard time given to me because of this, but like Fast and the Furious is one of my all-time favorite movies. And I know we had a topic, our second episode, I think, maybe I don't remember which one it was, but we where we were talking about how much I love Vin Diesel and how much I love Fast and the Furious movies. And I still haven't seen Fast 8 though. Like Fate of the Furious, I've just not sat down to watch it yet, but it was like, I love these movies so much, and I don't like cars. I'm not a car guy, and it's something where I go 4 miles an hour over the speed limit wherever I drive. I am putting my cruise control on and I'm good. But when it comes to Fast and the Furious, I just want all the fast cars I can. I want to hear Vin Diesel say ridiculously bad things. And like, I remember saying it then, and I'll say it again. When I watched Fast 5, I texted Jennifer because I was watching it when she was like at work or out of town or something, and I was really disappointed because there just weren't enough fast cars in it. And she just died because it was something she never thought that she would hear out of me. That I was like, yeah, it's fine, but there's just not enough fast cars.
Wow.
And it's like, I just love those movies, and I love Vin Diesel. I've seen The Pacifier. I still haven't seen The Last Witch Hunter. Like, I really need to see it, and probably this coming week or weekend I'm gonna watch the new XXX movie because it finally started streaming. The Return of Xander Cage.
Wow. Yeah, those are bad, but
they're so bad.
Yeah. And then the last one that you had was Date Night, which I think you've talked about before, right?
Jennifer and I have this thing where date night is one of the is one of those movies that we just go back to and watch. It and 21 Jump Street are two of our go-to movies that when we want to just laugh and have a good time together and don't really want to think and just be there with each other, we'll just watch 21 Jump Street or Date Night. And nobody seems to appreciate Date Night whenever I mention it to them. And that's one of the reasons Austin and I became friends, is because when we realized that we both quoted at the exact same time in a conversation a line out of a, let me think, how was it? Out of a deleted scene that was being played during the credits of Date Night. And we realized that we were soulmates at that point, and because of Date Night. And so Jennifer and I did the same thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are our favorites. Let's wrap it up by talking about like what we're looking forward to right now. I mean, Ready Player One, obviously, we've been talking about that for a couple weeks now. I would also say Pacific Rim 2 for me, which you saw, right?
I saw, yeah. I was seeing that one on opening night. Jennifer wouldn't go see it with me, so I went and saw it by myself. Work finished up a little bit early, and I went to the theater at 4:15 to watch it, and
Sweet.
it was glorious.
Okay,
it wasn't as good as the first one. Like, I really, really loved the first one, and I lost my Blu-ray of it, and so when I went out to get a running shirt the other day, I saw the first one on Blu-ray for $7.50 at Target, so I grabbed it. So I watched Pacific Rim on Pacific Rim 2 on Friday, and it was awesome. And then on Sunday, after my long run, I basked in the post 12-mile glory and laid on the couch and watched Pacific Rim. So it was like the perfect afternoon for me.
Sweet. We both have Tag on here, which I think is funny because I didn't even hear about it till last week.
It was last week because my buddy sent a trailer to Jennifer and she made me watch it, and it was a short trailer. And then before Pacific Rim 2, there was a different trailer for Tag, and it is exactly my kind of dumb comedy, like Date Night or 21 Jump Street. It really feels like it's going to be one of those movies.
Yeah, and that's one that a lot of these we haven't been talking about what they are because they're well enough known. Tag is like a really new on the scene. I don't know why it's just in the last week I've started seeing stuff.
Yeah,
but
same here.
It's a Jeremy Renner, and it's like him and 3 or 4 of his friends, and they've had a game of tag going on for 30 some years. And I think they said every May, it's an ongoing game of tag nonstop 24/7 for the whole month. So it's about them as a group, but really it's a comedy movie, and it looks funny. Look up a trailer if you haven't heard of it yet.
It looks way better than I ever thought it could have possibly been. It makes me want to have a 30-year game of tag with my friends. It makes me want to get together with my friends once a year and play a month-long game of tag. It looks like it does. Like, that's the kind of social thing that I would love to have. Like, I don't know. There was something about the concept and the writing in the trailer, at least, I want to see it good.
I mean, I guess the last one on here that I'm actually anticipating is Jurassic World 2, which is, I don't know, it has some subtitle. Fallen Kingdom? That sounds approximately right.
Fallen Kingdom? I think that's it.
It doesn't really matter what it's called. It's another Jurassic World. I'm going to see it. I'm going to enjoy it. So, yeah. You have Deadpool 2, which I totally forgot about Deadpool, but yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah. The trailers, I saw a trailer that the newest trailer they released that were basically showed that they were putting together X-Force, and I just got excited that that one made me really happy when I saw Terry Crews in it, because Terry Crews is one of my favorite actors, and I was like, he may be playing Bishop. And I'm really excited because I watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and it's one of my favorite TV shows. And it is this kind of dumb because I didn't think I was going to like it at all. And it's become probably my favorite show on TV. And when I used to hate sitcoms. So it was, it's really good. So when I saw Terry Crews, I'm all in on Deadpool 2 now.
Nice. And then you have Solo with a lot of question marks. I don't know.
I don't know if I'm looking forward to it because I think it's going to be dumb. And I don't know if I'm looking forward to it because I don't know what kind of dumb it's going to be.
Yeah, I don't think Disney will let it be bad enough that it can actually be dumb in like the cult status way of the movies that we're talking about are. I think if it's bad, it'll just be bad. That's my concern.
Yep. I did see when I went to the theater the other day, I did see one of the giant plagiarized solo posters though that they did go ahead and just put those out. So it's really funny to me. But I saw it and I was like, yeah, I know what you guys did.
Wow, nice. Okay, cool. I think that's about it for the main topic. Let's get over to Geeky Offer of the Week really quick. You can go to audibletrial.com/geek2geekcast and get a free audiobook on us, month free trial. Always cool. It helps the podcast. I'm going to recommend a book this week because it's part of my weekly geekery, the Powder Mage trilogy. So the first one I read called Promise of Blood. Have you heard of this trilogy?
I've heard of it, and I actually Googled it when I saw it on there, and I don't, it's not the one I'm thinking of, but somebody has told me about it. I'm not sure if it was you or one of my other friends.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they have like all of these different, they call them like cabals of mages that are kind of almost different schools of magic, but not really. They're like different ranks of people. It's definitely a fantasy setting, but this one centers around the powder mages and how they're basically like gunpowder and like gun mages in a fantasy setting.
Okay.
And they are one of the only groups of people that can counter like the traditional magic users. So it's a really interesting dichotomy between them. So I haven't done a ton of fantasy recently, and this is one of the only ones that like hooked me enough to pull me all the way through, outside of like Sanderson or Brent Weeks and the stuff that we always like. So yeah, I'm going to recommend that for the week. Again,
that sounds awesome.
Geekery. I blasted through it in the last week or two. Don't forget, we're part of Podcast Network, which is awesome. I listen to everybody every week. There's always Geektitude with Joe Hogan and Ray, and I don't know what they're covering this week because the episode's not out yet, but I will be listening to it when it comes out. Tea Time with Katie and Chelsea this week. They talked about rom-coms and how they're different when they're written by men versus women, which was a really interesting talk. And then the Comic Box, Rob actually had Katie from Tea Time as the guest co-host this week, and they ended up talking about a bunch of stuff. They have a really good, it's like an hour and a half, almost 2 hour long episode where they talk about a bunch of stuff, and then they also talk about Jessica Jones. But I'm like halfway through it right now, and they're just talking about other things, and I love it. I love when that happens sometimes.
And I do too. Like I love the tangents in shows with people I like, but not strangers.
Yes. So it's all good stuff. If you like the network, go check out everything. Let's get over to our weekly geekery. What do you have this week?
I'm listening to The Collapsing Empire. You recommended this a long time ago, and I bought it on Audible. And now that I'm able to listen to audiobooks while I run, I am getting through audio. I'm finally getting through books. And I finished Ready Player One, and it was everything I remembered it being. And I cannot wait to see my 3D spectacle of Ready Player One on Thursday night of this week. And so I'm ready because of that. So I moved directly from it into The Collapsing Empire. When I saw it in my library, I was like, oh yeah, there are more Scalzi books. And so I started it, and I think it was in the beginning of one of my runs. I don't even remember, but I'm almost done with it now. I think it's a 9-hour audiobook, and I think I may have one more run's worth of audio on it. So I'm really excited because it feels like Dune. It has an incredible Dune vibe. That's really, really what it feels like to me.
Except that it's good.
And when I texted you, that's what you said. That's what I was about to say. But I love Dune. Frank Herbert, the first Dune and the third Dune. Is it God Emperor of Dune? That's the third one, or is it Children of Dune? That's the third one.
You're not asking the right person. I tried the first Dune, and I was like, this is extremely boring. I'm never coming back to this.
Okay, I love the first one. It is incredibly boring, but it is.
I like the miniseries. Does that count?
Yes, because the sci-fi miniseries is great. The David Lynch movie that was done in the 80s is terrible, and I know I'm going to get hate mail for that. But it's true, and it takes the good parts of Dune, which is like the political intrigue, and puts it on characters that you can actually sympathize with and empathize with, where Dune is incredibly well written and plotted, and if you get into the politics of it, you really see how intricate it was and how hard it was for Frank Herbert to put this entire story together, that I did some master's work on it, so I'm like huge fan of Dune. Like I can dig into Dune, and I've taught it at multiple times, and the Collapsing Empire takes the best parts of it and makes it accessible. So I was really excited because I'm so close to being done with it now. I was like, it's been a while since that came out, so I went to look up for the next one when it was coming out and see if it was out yet. and it's not, so I'm angry. But I did find out that there is a second Lock-In book, that there is a sequel to Lock-In. Did you know this?
Yeah, I did. It's not out yet, right? Or is it out yet?
It is out now.
Okay,
so
that snuck by me. We talked about this earlier, how like we don't really pay attention to release dates for books. So I knew that one existed, but I thought it was like a ways out still.
And I didn't know that there was going to be a sequel to it. So once I finish The Collapsing Empire, I'm going to re-listen to Lock-In so that I can then listen to Lock-In 2 or whatever the title is. But I'm really excited because they're doing it the same way. There's still 2 different versions of the audiobook, one with Will Wheaton and one with Amber Benson. And since I started the Will Wheaton one, apparently I'm just going to be listening to like 4 Will Wheaton narrated audiobooks in a row because he did Ready Player One. He does The Collapsing Empire. He narrated my version of Lock-In, and I'll get the one he narrates as well for Lock-In 2 to stick with it. And for those of you who don't know, Lock-In, the book never refers to the main character with any gendered pronouns. That it is a first-person novel, and you are never told, because of the nature of the book, whether the main character is male or female. So they, in order to make just to kind of immerse you in it as an audiobook and let you choose what perspective you wanted to see it from and hear it from, they did a male and a female recording of it. So you have a man and a woman both doing the story, and I need to listen to both of them. I haven't listened to the Amber Benson ones, but she's great. She was Tara on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
It's cool. The first person nature of it, it's not over the top. Like it's not in your face trying to make a point, which I think it might come off the wrong way the way you described it, because I didn't listen to the audiobook. I read this book right when it came out because I like Scalzi and I usually read his stuff right when it comes out. Unless I totally forget there's a release date apparently. But I read Lock-In right when it came out, and I didn't notice at all. It was months and months after I had finished the book that somebody mentioned to me that it could be a male or a female, and I was like, oh, interesting. That's pretty cool. Like, it's very subtle.
Yeah, and I didn't notice it at all. The only reason I knew about it was because I was browsing Audible one day and saw that Lock-In narrated by Amber Benson, and I was like, no, it wasn't. That was Will Wheaton. And I looked into it, and the more I looked, it was because there are no gendered pronouns in it, and I didn't even notice it because the story, like, it's not in your face. Yeah, I don't want you guys to think it is. It's just a really well-written book that can change your perspective of how things are going if you listen to it. Then we finished Nailed It. I told you about that. I wanted to... have you watched it yet? Have you seen the first episode of Nailed It yet?
No.
Okay. We showed it to one of our friends, and he's now going to go home and watch all of it. He watched the final 2 episodes of the season because they're all standalone. And then he's going back to start and watch the rest of it because it's great. It's the parody cooking show that it's dumb. It goes in exactly with this topic because it is a cooking show that falls in exactly with where we're talking about these dumb movies. That it knows exactly what it is. It knows it's not serious and just leans in. And we finished it, and we're sad that there's not any more. I hope it gets renewed. And I bought myself a Garmin Vivo Fit 4 activity tracker because the Garmin Forerunner 235 I run with is very unwieldy, and so I don't want to wear like a big, even though it's a small GPS watch, I don't want to wear just a big watch like 24 hours a day, and I forget to put it on all the time. So I bought one of the newest activity trackers they have that syncs up with the same thing because I want to be able to be more active. I'm a numbers dude, so I'm going to push myself to get all these steps, and it syncs up between my GPS watch. It counts steps, and then this one does as well. So I'm doing that, and it has a year-long battery because it doesn't do a charge. It uses a watch battery or one of the flat cell batteries, so it'll last forever and a year, and then I just replace the battery. So I'm really enjoying that. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it because it's something that I'm still testing it out right now. I like the idea of it, but I don't know how it's actually going to go in the long term. But right now I'm liking it. And then the Barkley Marathons just happened. I was talking about that a couple of weeks ago with the documentaries and everything, and you and I were talking about it. Did you know that they were this weekend that the Barkley
I
marathons were going on?
Only because you were talking about it on Twitter.
Okay, that's fair. I was sad because the documentary that was out, both of them, and this newest one was following Gary Robbins, and he was going in for his third attempt this year, and nobody finished. That this is the first year since 2015 there were no finishers, and there have only been 15 finishers in the last 30 years anyway. So it was interesting to see that nobody did, even the veterans who've done it a long lot, and Gary didn't even make it past lap 3 of the 5 laps, and he didn't even make the cutoff to be able to move forward into lap 4. That he didn't make the, I think, 36-hour time that you had to be in under. So nobody even went into lap 4 this year. So it kind of got called early, because weather in Tennessee was apparently terrible there, that it was East Tennessee, like everywhere else in the United States, had unpredictable weather, and it just ruined the Barkley this year. Well, it didn't ruin it. It is what it is, but it made it much harder for them.
That sucks. That's unfortunate. Maybe next year. It's interesting. I still say that if you are interested in it at all, that Netflix documentary is really cool to see.
Yep, and then after you watch that one, watch Where Dreams Go to Die by the Ginger Runner. It's a follow-up documentary that he did for it.
Nice. Yeah, so this week my brother came over and we overhauled my network. Basically, like, all the brains of my network got redone. I kept my modem, and I have a really good, it's supposed to be a router, but I'm using it as like an overkill access point instead, like a nice Netgear Nighthawk something with ridiculous antennas on it, because I'm in a townhouse and I have to blast out all of my neighbors' signals to get good Wi-Fi. And those two parts I left, and we changed out everything else. So I actually have a dedicated router for the first time ever that's not like a router and switch together. All it does is route stuff. And then I got a really nice switch that I was going to buy one, and then my dad's like, oh, I have a really nice one, so he just gave it to me, which was sweet.
That's awesome.
So yeah, between that for my dad and then my brother coming over, and the router is actually really cool because it's basically just like a Linux machine running on dedicated hardware. So it's pretty sweet. Anyway, my Wi-Fi is now like 200 megabits per second or something like that. It's ridiculous, and I love it, and it's great. So that was my like big project for the week. I'm still playing Fortnite. The only thing interesting to report in is that Blitz mode was like the timed one, or like the limited time one this week, and it's the first limited time mode that they've patched in that I feel like I wish stayed forever, because all of the other ones I mentioned how like I could see where I would start to get sick of it if it was always available. And Blitz mode is the same as normal, except you start with the storm ring already closing in on the first circle. So it just cuts down the game time by like 5 minutes. So those like 25-minute games, if you like make it towards the end, it might be like 20, 25, somewhere in there. Now they were down to like 20 minutes. And a lot of the time, because of the nature of Fortnite, you get knocked out early. I could play through matches and have a good time and feel like I'd actually done something, and get eliminated, still be in like the top 50, sometimes top 20, and it would only take like 5 minutes, maybe 10. So that was really cool. I wish that one would stay around. I think it's already out of the game. Besides that, I'm still playing Fortnite, obviously.
I saw people who I had no idea were even gamers talking about Fortnite on Facebook recently, and I was just like, man, y'all.
One of the executives from my company who hasn't played a game since like GoldenEye was asking me about it. And I was like, this is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
like, it's not even, like I've told you, it's not even the game. It's like, I don't understand how it blew up like this. Like, I don't understand the viral hype that it has right now.
I know. I think I'm more invested in the story of how it's gotten so big than I am in the actual game at this point, because it's just fascinating. It's really, really interesting. But I tried a bunch of other games this week, and like nothing really stuck, which was kind of unfortunate, but at least I crossed a bunch of things off my list. Have you heard of any of these next three?
No.
Okay. So Warhammer Vermintide 2, it's a sequel to Vermintide, which wasn't great, but it was okay, supposedly. I never played it. But it's basically like Left 4 Dead, but Warhammer, and with like character classes. So you can actually like advance a class and like give it skills and like evolve it over time if you keep using it. I didn't love it. Like I could see why other people were liking it, but it didn't do enough new for me. And I'm not a huge fan of the Warhammer setting. So I played for like an hour and a little bit, and then I got a Steam refund on it, which ended up being fine. But at least I kind of sampled it because a lot of people I knew were talking about it and saying good things.
And I haven't played any of the Warhammer games other than Warhammer Online, and I'm still mad that that one got closed down because I loved that game. And it's the only Warhammer thing I've ever really liked because I'm like you, I'm not a huge fan of the setting, but there was something about it that I adored, and apparently no one else did.
Yeah, I don't know. I know a lot of people like Warhammer, and I think it's okay, and I think 40K is a little bit better, but it's just not my kind of thing.
I do
which
like
is
40K
totally
as a setting. It's cool.
Yeah, so then I jumped over, I played Assassin's Creed Rogue, the remaster, because I got it for super cheap on PSN. There was like, I think it's only $30, and then there was a sale where it knocked another like 20 or 30% off of it. So I got it for cheap. I was like, I'll try it because I never played this one. It was
I didn't know you had never played it.
Well, it was the one that came out when Unity was coming out on PS4. This came out on 360 and PS3. This is the only one that didn't get released on like modern consoles after modern consoles had come out.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, so it was a weird one, but it feels like an odd mashup, like a mix-up of gameplay from Assassin's Creed 3 and 4, and because of that, there's nothing really new. I mean, the story is new, and like the maps, like the areas you can get to are new, but it feels like playing 3, and if it doesn't feel like when you're playing 3, it feels like you're playing 4. I mean, it's basically like Black Flag's open world with the ship, and then on the ground, it feels a lot like Assassin's Creed 3 with like the movement and the abilities and stuff like that. So it actually does have some of the same locations from those games, just totally taken and placed back down. So it kind of ties them together a little bit, but I don't know. I've played those games. I don't need to play them again. So I put 5 hours into it, and I was kind of like, I was expecting more, and I set it down. And then I moved over to...
I was in... have you ever heard of the store Five Below?
Yes.
I went to Five Below the other night just to see what was there. Actually, I went there to see if they had Pacific Rim on Blu-ray for $5, and before I found it for $7. But they had Assassin's Creed 3 for the Wii U for $5, and I'm tempted to go get it, but I have it on PC, and so I'm trying to decide. I don't know if that's worth it, and I don't know if I would actually play through enough of it to actually honestly even pay $5 for it. But 3's supposed to be good, right?
It really depends on who you ask. I thought it was, I liked it, but it is a lot of people's least favorite game in the series, and I understand why. So your mileage will vary for sure.
I gotcha.
Yeah. And then I jumped over and I played War Games. It's actually #WarGames, which have you heard about?
Is that the actual name of it?
The actual name has a hashtag in it, yes.
Okay, then no, I absolutely have not. I honestly thought you were just making fun of it or something.
No, I wasn't. That's what it's called. It's so you remember Her Story from a year or two ago?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's the guy or the team or the whatever that made Her Story. This is their next project. And it's like a reimagining of War Games for the modern era. Whereas Her Story was very, very interesting and new in terms of like how you interact with like basically the FMV, right? Like the full motion video of it.
Yeah.
This is like an FMV game made for modern times, but without anything really interesting about it. There's a bunch of different video feeds all happening at the same time, and they're not clashing. They're all tied together. So it might be a bunch of people who are on webcams talking to each other, or it could be like someone's phone, or like, you know, one of the people on the webcams like pulls up a browser window so you can like click on that and make that big. So you always see all of the video feeds and how they're connected to each other, but you can click on any one at a time to see it be your like primary feed and like bigger in the window. So the thing about the game, like their hook that's supposed to get you, is that depending on what you're watching more of, it will adapt the story to give you like things that are interesting along those lines, or focus more on those characters or more on that situation that you have as your primary video. But to me, it just didn't seem like anything was happening. It seemed like I was watching a TV show, because all of those things where it's like, oh, your choices matter because of what you watched, it's all so hidden from the player that it just feels like you're watching TV. And once I got to that point where I felt like I was just watching a show, instead of comparing it to FMV games, I started comparing it to TV shows, and I went, oh, this is really bad. Like, not fun bad, just bad. So I think they were so subtle with what they were trying to do that it actually works against them in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I could totally see that, because if you don't really know how you're picking things and you're actually just sitting there and watching stuff without any other major interactivity, it would just be like watching TV. You click on a couple of things every now and then to move into a different window.
Yeah, and I mean, I did probably like an hour of it, and I wouldn't have, looking back, if it had just been a TV show, I would not have watched nearly as much as I did. So the fact that there was interaction, it kept me a little bit longer, but in the end, it just didn't work. Like, I liked what they were thinking, but I don't think the execution is there, which is sad. I was hoping for a lot from this one. At the same time,
I've never liked FMV games, so it doesn't sound like something I would even want to try, even though the concept is interesting, but you actually lost me at modern FMV game.
Well, I don't like FMV games either, but I loved Her Story, and this is from the same people. Okay. And I love choose your own adventure, like impact the story type stuff. You know how much I like that.
Yep.
And this game was sold as the next project from Her Story people, where you get to choose your own adventure. And I was like, perfect, I'm in. But the execution just wasn't at all what I wanted it to be.
I get that.
I guess the other thing, to wrap it up on a slightly better note, I watched Altered Carbon this week. I watched like half of it. I'll probably have more full thoughts next week. But from a high level, like, I like it a lot, just like you did. I do think that it has like more sex and more violence than it actually needs. It's kind of leaning into that like Netflix HBO trap of doing sex and violence to the extreme just because they can get away with it. And it fits the setting, it fits the story. It's not that it feels forced in. I just don't think they needed to take it as far as they did.
And again, this is one where I feel like they just leaned in on it, where I was okay with it more than anything, because it's there and it's excessive and it's almost gratuitous, but because of the way the entire show presents itself, it's like, yep, this is part of it. It accepts that, and so will I.
Okay. I mean, that's totally valid too. I see why they do it, and it does fit the setting. So it's not like it's turning me away from the show. I just feel like they probably could have gotten away with less and made the show a little bit, I don't know, more approachable, maybe, and something like that. But in the end, I'm in it for that murder mystery, and like the sci-fi murder mystery of it is really good. I really like that core part of it, and that's what I'm watching it for. And what I was telling you right before we recorded, I don't actually remember how the book ends. It's been a really long time, so at some point I knew the answer to this murder mystery, and I have since forgotten it. So I'm right there with the characters trying to figure it out again. I'm like, I don't remember. I really don't remember the answer.
And I knew like high points of the story. I've read this book like 4 times and I couldn't remember the very end of it. And they've changed just enough stuff in there where I don't necessarily, I wouldn't have been able to really pick a lot of the stuff out even if I had remembered everything about it. But I found a video on YouTube after I finished this that was like what the 10 most major changes were in Altered Carbon, and it helped me solidify back in what happened in the book. I was like, oh yeah, they did change that. That's why that didn't feel as familiar. And it was partly because I'd forgotten and partly because they had made adaptive choices to the show, but it worked. A lot of the stuff worked so well that they changed I didn't even notice.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm glad that you like it, and I'll report back next week. I'll probably have it finished by next week's episode, so if I have more thoughts, I will bring those for sure. That's about it for today. You can write to us with comments, suggestions, or feedback. Our email address is geek2geekcast@gmail.com, or reach us on Twitter @geek2geekcast. We have longer discussion threads on our subreddit at reddit.com/r/geek2geekcast.
And if you want to just chat, we're on Slack too. You can go to slack.geek2geekcast.com for an invite. And like we said earlier, we're part of a podcast network, so head over to geek2geekcast.com and see all of our shows.
I blog at agreenmushroom.com, and you can find me at grnmushroom. That's green mushroom without the E's on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter as @Professor Beej. That's Beej with 2 E's. And I'm now online at runningshoes.tv.
We've been Void and Beej with your Geek to Geek podcast. That'll do it for this week. See you next week, geeks.
Bye, geeks.
Comics. Hey everyone, Rob here, your friendly neighborhood comic geek, inviting you to join me and my rotating cast of co-hosts each week on The Comic Box, where we tell you everything you need to know to become a world-class comic book geek. So join us for The Comic Box each week right here on the Geek to Geek Podcast Network.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie.
And I'm Chelsea, and we are the hosts of Tea Time with Katie and Chelsea. We are two best friends who love pop culture and talking about pretty much whatever we want. Katie!
Yes?
Stop thinking about Zac Efron and tell our future listeners what some of our latest episodes have been about.
Well, we've talked about Zac Efron.
No, get it together, Katie.
Fine. We've talked about fan fiction, classical literature adaptations, favorite TV couples, and so much more. So grab your cup of tea or whatever your drink of choice is and download our podcast today.
Hi, my name is Joe Hogan, and I'm a geek. And if you're currently listening to this, there's a good chance you're a geek too. So check out my podcast, Geektitude. Each week, I talk with somebody about their geek aptitude. Sometimes I talk to people in a geeky profession. Sometimes it's someone doing something really cool with their geekiness. Often it's another geeky podcaster. But it's always someone who wants to share their inner geek. So join me each week as we come together to geek out about all the geeky stuff we love. And remember, this week, keep it geek.